Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to say at the beginning that I'll be sharing my time with my colleague, the Honourable Member from Saint-Lambert. I should also say at the very beginning that I fully intend to support the resolution. Its emphasis on abuses of the temporary foreign worker program and abuse that amounts to threats to the well-being of Canadian workers and the Canadian economy, I think I can well support the premise along the lines of what some of my colleagues have already been arguing. But frankly, Mr. Speaker, I'd like to speak about another form of abuse, the abuse of temporary foreign workers themselves, and how that fits into the overall scheme of the concerns in the motion. The fact of the matter is that evidence is now suggesting that the temporary foreign workers program has been used and is being used in a way that actually is bringing in temporary foreign workers in situations that place them in very vulnerable workplace environments. It's not being used in a way that was originally envisaged, and it's not being used in a way that, for example, would be bringing in highly skilled workers where perhaps the abuse potential in their workplaces might be less than in other areas. The Alberta Federation of Labour did some research for the period of April to December 2012 on labour market opinions, and out of 4,800 labour market opinions issued in that period, 2,400 of them, fully half, 50%, were for low-skilled jobs. So the extra abuse potential with the problem of how the temporary foreign workers system is now working, I hope is obvious with that statistic. And the mere fact that the Royal Bank of Canada tried what they tried and were given permission by the government to do what they tried shows how the system can be used to gut existing jobs. And why would that be? That would be because existing jobs probably are staffed by people whose benefits and workplace conditions are somehow or other getting in the way of the corporate project. There's no other reason to think that RBC would be getting rid of 35 people who already had the same jobs that were going to be hired for if they didn't think they were going to get some benefits and the level of workplace conditions, salaries, etc. So I want to focus, Mr. Speaker, on proper compliance and enforcement issues, including the importance of working with the provinces to ensure that temporary foreign workers are not subject to abuse in the workplace, and also more broadly. And on that point, I will speak about the issue of deportation as well. And so I'm very privileged to be able to report, Mr. Speaker, that the recent NDP convention this past weekend in Montreal, youth members of the Toronto-Danforth Riding Association proposed to our party, the New Democratic Party, to add a clause to the policy book on precisely the kind of issue that is raised by the motion today. It was tabled, debated on the floor, and passed, and it was introduced by a youth member of the NDP. It said, be it resolved that the following clause be added to the NDP policy book, to already 8 clauses on temporary foreign workers, and it read, working with foreign embassies of sending countries to ensure temporary foreign workers coming to Canada are informed of their rights, a concrete measure. Then working with the provinces to institute a licensing system for foreign recruiters, as is done in Manitoba, and a registration system for employers of temporary foreign workers. Finally, it says, and providing access to federal hearings for temporary foreign workers who face deportation. Mr. Speaker, this is now NDP policy, having been virtually unanimously, if not unanimously, voted by over 2,000 delegates at the NDP convention on Sunday. Allow me, with the same pride as MP of Toronto-Danforth in the NDP youth, to refer to the introductory remarks made by Andre Fast on behalf of the Riding Association when introducing the motion. He wanted the 2,000 and so delegates to consider the following considerations. He told them that many temporary foreign workers coming to Canada simply face exploitation of various forms. They are sometimes cheated by unscrupulous recruiters who make big promises they then don't deliver on. When the migrant workers get here, they are often, not always, they're good employers, of course, many good employers perhaps. They often face inadequate housing, inadequate training, and poor wages. Some migrant workers are often exposed to some of the most dangerous working conditions in Canada. And frankly, the way the system works, that may be the reason they're being brought in some cases. And if they're injured on the job, or if they complain about working conditions, it often results in their deportation, which suggests to me, Mr. Speaker, that quite often that very fact is the reason many temporary foreign workers refrain from complaining about their job conditions. The United Food and Commercial Workers, UFCW, has been doing tremendous work over the years to help these workers in our economy, but the government itself needs to do more to protect them. Putting measures in place to ensure recruiters and employers of temporary workers can be held accountable will help protect them, such as the measures suggested and are now part of the NDP policy. No worker should be injured on the job and then simply, as my colleague from James Bay Timmins remarked, then simply disposed of. And this is why we also need federal hearings for temporary foreign workers who face deportation. As New Democrats, we stood up on Sunday for the most vulnerable members of our society in adopting this resolution, and I have to say I'm very proud of the NDP youth who put forward this resolution at convention. They seem to understand the nature of this particular challenge far better than the Conservative government that has been promising a review for some time. Not only have they failed to keep that promise, they also now are continuing an abusive system that we've seen in the last few weeks come to light. Manitoba is mentioned. Manitoba has been governed for 4 successive terms by an NDP government, and in April 2009, they introduced a system that is being used as the model in the motion just passed the NDP convention. The Manitoba's Worker Recruitment and Protection Act now has provisions and regulations that do a number of very important things that are needed across the country. This is why we need to have collaboration with the federal government in the nature of this temporary foreign workers program. First thing is foreign worker recruitment agencies have to be registered and licensed by the province in order to do that recruitment. They are prohibited from charging fees for the recruitment to the foreign workers themselves. Thirdly, employers must register with the province. That's not just the recruiters, but the employers. And once they're registered, they actually can then work with the province to receive direct assistance benefiting from the province's network of international partnerships to source appropriate foreign workers in the right contexts. And finally, employers and recruitment agencies have to have detailed records about the place of employment, workers' duties, wages, and up-to-date contact information. Now, at the time that this was adopted, the United Food and Commercial Workers president at the time, Wayne Hanley, said the following, quote, "By keeping a registry of where these workers are, who recruited them, and what they were promised when they were hired, you finally have a jurisdiction with the political will and regulations to penalize and weed out employers and recruiters who abuse foreign workers," unquote. What's going on in Manitoba is a model of collaboration and cooperation between government, labour, and business, to which we very much believe that the government side of this must be expanded. We need federal cooperation with the provinces to make sure this kind of scheme is rolled out across the country, and for the kinds of contacts with foreign governments through the embassies to make sure that workers come knowing that they do have rights and knowing the ways in which they can go about seeking to enforce them. I'd finally like to end, Mr. Speaker, by saying that what we're seeing in the last few weeks coming to light again, not as if it wasn't known more generally, is part of a bigger picture. This is not just about temporary foreign workers, that particular slice of our economy. It's about the organization of the entire economy and a particular ideology and set of attitudes that lie behind the way this government thinks about economics. What we're looking at is a kind of migrantization of the economy. If you look at the unemployment insurance system and all the recent reforms, so-called reforms, what they're intended to do, basically create a more atomized society of workers who are forced to move further and further afield to find jobs at least the same wage they had before. They have to actually leave their whole region to do so, or they have to actually go within an hour of where they used to work to receive any benefits. The way in which workers are being forced to think of themselves as completely mobile units to move all around the country, be damned, so to speak, with respect to the effects on community and family, this is part of the same picture. And so I'd like to say, Mr. Speaker, that I believe that this motion deserves support. Its references to abuse of the system and abuse of Canadian workers are well-founded, but abuse of temporary foreign workers themselves has to be built into our understanding of why we're voting for this motion. Thank you.